Hello and welcome back to Dream Girl. I'm Sheen, your host, and today we're joined by the lovely Lucy Chow, who is the Senior Senator of the World Business Angel Investment Forum, an investor, an author, and also just a serial award winner. Hello, Lucy. How are you?
Hi, Sheen. How are you? Thanks for having me today.
No, very excited for the chat. I actually met you at the Women's Convention.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
You were the favorite there. I'm not surprised you don't remember because literally everyone gunned for you after
Sheen,
your
that's
panel.
So nice.
Yeah.
It was a fabulous topic. I remember now because there was such, I think it resonated with a lot of entrepreneurs.
It did. And I think for me, the question that really resonated was the quota question, which we will get into in a bit. And I think that was the first question where there were two sides of the discussion.
Right.
And both sides are not wrong or not right.
Right, but always controversial.
Exactly.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, we'll get into it. But okay, tell us, Lucy, what do you do professionally? What does it mean to be the senior senator? I'm not going to try and say it again.
You did so well.
Thank you.
So essentially, the World Business Angel Investment Forum is part of the G20 for financial inclusion, G20 Partnership for Financial Inclusion, which means that, first of all, the organization, there's over 100 representatives in different countries, and we all tend to somehow, we're quite integral to the entrepreneurial eco-startup systems in our countries. So whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur or a policymaker or an educator, it runs the whole gamut. So there's an annual congress that takes place every year, but there's many things that happen in the organization through the year. And essentially what we're doing is that we're using our own personal platforms, our social capital, to ensure that everything is being done in our respective countries to uplift the entrepreneurial ecosystem, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, so advocacy.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And have you been in the UAE for a while now?
Yes. So I'm so proud to say we're going into our 17th year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's the time's passed really super quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the entrepreneurial landscape in the UAE?
Yes. So one of the things that makes me laugh is because I've been here so long. One person actually put it this way, and now I use it all the time because it's just easy to remember. So they're like, you're like the OG angel investor because you know, and it was true because when I first started with a network, it was way over 10 years ago, and at that point the entrepreneurial ecosystem was still quite nascent. But as you know now, there is a huge focus on the startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem because countries like ours, countries across the GCC, we want to find other ways of their population, earning income. They want their GDP to evolve away from oil money. It also just makes sense to encourage entrepreneurs, and they're the bedrock of every economy. So I think in the UAE, and you probably know the stats, Sheen, I think 80 to 90% of companies or the GDP of our country comes from SMEs.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I did not know that.
Yeah, so important, so very important.
Wow. This is really interesting because there is a shift that even I have seen when it comes to the people around me. A lot of people are now becoming entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
Later in life or early on in their careers. And I feel like the UAE, I mean, I've only been here for less than 2 years, but the structure is there to help you and support you. And even with where you are at, that means that, there is a proper structure that supports you.
Yeah.
But in your opinion, okay, so let's take this back a notch, because I was a consultant and then I made the jump to becoming an entrepreneur. And a lot of people are like this. They're in the corporate world because that's the known path. We know how that works. We know the career progression. We know the money. But then being an entrepreneur can be a bit scary, right? So what would you say would be like an advice to give to someone who wants to be an entrepreneur?
Sure. And I think it's you're absolutely right. It's definitely jumping into the deep end. That's why I'm super supportive of anyone that does it. And I'm so pro entrepreneur because they need all the support, right? Not only the funding, but the knowledge, with the WBF, we talk about smart money, smart financing. And so my advice for anyone that wants to try it, you are right. The ecosystem in the UAE is ripe for anyone that wants to try and set up a business. And it's getting easier. I've lost track of how many free trade zones there are. I think there's 40 in the UAE alone.
Easy.
And there is a lot of, and you talked about the network around you. So it's really important that you have that support and people that have done it before, people that can give advice. So if you see others doing the same thing, then it's not unusual, and you can see everyone hustling, right? And so I would say go ahead and do it, because frankly, you have, especially if you're young, you have a long time to work for a corporate. And you always know if for whatever reason the startup doesn't happen or it doesn't go to, where you want it to go, you could go back to earn in a corporate. Like you said, it's tracked. You can see the earning potential. That's a safe spot. So it's a bit of a luxury, frankly, right? To be able to jump off the deep end. But if you've got that luxury, absolutely do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's never really wasted time, because when you're a startup, an entrepreneur, all the skills that you learn.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like even me as an entrepreneur, it feels like I'm a plumber. Every day there's a new leak that you need to fix.
That's a good analogy.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then the skills that you learn, and I feel like corporate also appreciates that. And when you go to them and say, I had a startup, it failed, but now I wanna come back, they'll be like, okay, come, because they know you've done everything.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
no, and having your own company, obviously you understand the pain points of what it's like to run an organization. Doesn't matter if it's a startup organization or a Fortune 500 organization. It's you know what it means to watch the balance sheet, watch your expenses. I think that's very valuable for companies going forward.
for sure. So, Lucy, what was your trajectory? How did you end up becoming an angel investor?
Yeah, so I started off working for HSBC, or even before that, I was working for a very well-known mutual fund company, a unit trust, as they would say in the UK. So I was in the banking sector and then high yield distressed debt security for a long time. So in Hong Kong and New York, so two financial markets. And then we came, my husband and I came to Dubai, another financial market. And when we moved here, I didn't want to stay in a corporate role. And we can talk more about the pros and cons of staying in a corporate. Because I mean, the company HSBC offered me a job, but they weren't paying as well as Hong Kong at the time, and the role was quite different. So I thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity to become an entrepreneur myself, to test that water, because I had just also a few years before completed an executive MBA. So I think in my head, I had already wanted a different trajectory. And so coming to Dubai allowed that, frankly. So I started the Elements Group, which was an event management company. I really enjoyed that, because at the time when I came, I didn't feel like there was enough thought leadership content. Banks were looking for something different for their clients. Anyways, that's kind of how the Elements Group grew. And then it was a girlfriend that said, what do you think about becoming an angel investor? There's nothing here in Dubai. There's nothing in the UAE. And I thought, well, I don't know that I'm qualified to be an angel investor. But and then it kind of snowballed from there, because the whole point was, unless we start learning, then how do we become an angel investor? And so in markets like the US, you have to be invited into angel networks, right? And it's just one of the things I love about being here is that the population is still relatively small. Opportunities are abundant here because our population is so small. And you can get to be known quite easily because, again, the population is quite small. So anyways, so I dove in and became an angel investor. And what we always say to other women who want to do it is that you start small, and then you start developing confidence. You start writing bigger tickets. Hopefully, you have some exits so you can write more tickets. And then we really would like to see more women become limited partners in funds, and perhaps one day starting their own funds and becoming a general partner.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I grew. That's kind of how, lockstep, that I kind of moved ahead in the investing space.
Right. So you went from corporate to entrepreneur to then
Yes.
becoming an angel investor.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
mean, I think I'm still I'm very intellectually curious. I still love to do a lot of things, and I'm very focused on impact investing, which is, what's wonderful about the investing platform is you can have you can kind of talk to people about why you're investing in one space or another, and why it's important to do impact investing, and why it makes a difference, your money, how you can make a difference. Because we can all be consumers, but if you can direct your funding, you can direct your money to, female founders, for instance, with fabulous ideas, then that's a bonus.
Okay. Just can you elaborate a bit on what is impact investing?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So I always say that, so impact investing typically means that the company is somehow giving back to society.
Right.
Okay, so it might be a fintech that is banking the unbanked, right? We have so much of that in the region, where most people cannot, they don't have enough money to open a bank account,
Yes.
but they need to send remittances home to the global south every month, and they're getting gouged by the fees.
Yes.
But if you have an app, like for instance Now Money, which is one company that we invested in as an angel network, they bank the unbanked, and you can do all the transactions through your mobile
That's
phone.
amazing.
There's a lot of other services they provide, but that is what I would call an impact investment. Now they won't necessarily call themselves an impact company,
Yeah.
but I always say that impact and profits are not mutually exclusive. You can invest in many companies that are making an impact and still make a return on your money. So that's like one example, one very small example.
Right. So therefore, it's just looking at a company if there is some sort of societal impact.
Exactly.
From
And
what they're doing.
it's interesting. Women really resonate with the stories with an arc like that, right? They want to be doing good. Philanthropy, giving money for the sake of giving money, I think it's awesome. It's
Yeah, for
super
sure.
awesome. But if you're also able to allocate a portion of your finances to investing in a company that also makes impact, that's another way of not only giving hopefully a return to yourself, right? So we can also talk about financial literacy for women later on.
Yes.
That's really important. But you're also doing good for the world.
Yeah, for sure. And you talked about, women being angel investors. Do you think, because even just investing in general, I've seen how my friends around me are so reluctant because there's an element of not knowing how to do it.
Yes.
And there's also an element of, I don't want to because my money is here, I can see it, but then I put it away. What happens to
Okay,
it?
Sheen, I love it. Okay, so I was brought up in a really humble household,
Same.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. My parents were immigrants to Canada.
Yeah.
So the scarcity mindset
Oh,
was
gosh.
right. Okay, so
Yes.
we totally
Yes.
understand that. So then I just always thought it was me. But when you bring up your friends and women, I heard a fabulous analogy, and it's like, so when we think of a pot of money, the way women think of their money is sort of like in a lake, and it keeps flowing out to the river. Okay, so and then the lake goes down, down, down. But the way men think about money is that there's always an abundance of it. They don't think of it of flowing away. So the psychology right there already is so different, right? If you're always worried that you're gonna, the more you spend, the more you're gonna lose, then that scarcity mindset stays with you. So I think we need, and this is why the financial literacy is really important. Not that you don't know how to buy bonds and stocks and balance a checkbook, but really, how about different ways of diversifying your money to make it work for you? And so, like we tend to do, when we don't know about something, we learn. So we take courses, or we join up with an organization like 2022 Female Angels that you heard us talk about at the WE convention. Where we spend a lot of time putting together courses or boot camps. We bring in the experts so that women can learn about what does it mean to be an angel investor, and how much should I be putting in, and how do I do due diligence, and how do I determine which company to invest in. Nobody knows these answers to these questions unless you do. So it's to give the confidence to women to feel comfortable making that very first hurdle, making that very first investment.
Oh, everything you've spoken has, it resonates so much with me. Even myself personally, I same thing, grew up with a scarcity mindset, right? That there's not enough. You don't know what can happen tomorrow. So let's just hoard the money.
That's right.
And the first time I started working, I just remember just loving to see that money in my bank account.
That's right.
You don't want it to go anywhere. You're like, it's here, I'll keep it. And then having to change that to an abundance mindset, knowing that you need to spend money to make money, is a big jump that needs to happen.
It really is.
And it happened with me over time. And even investing, I had to have a friend sit with me and be like, no, we're doing it now. And they showed me how to do it. And that's how I did it. But I feel like there's a big unknown. So then you're scared. But even today, there's so much help on the internet.
So
there
true.
are YouTube videos, everything about how you can invest, how to make it easier for you. Start small. There are apps where you can do it.
Love it. I love it.
But what advice do you have for women, especially, to jump from that scarcity mindset to the abundance mindset?
No, I mean, I think you need to start. So one of the slogans we have in 2022 Female Angels is that angels make noise, angels invest. We realize that women, when we converse, we don't talk about our investments with each other. Right? And when I'm not, we're not like, hey, Sheen, I just exited Mom's World and guess how much money I made. We don't talk about, and how are you investing your money? And what tips do you have for me? So we need to start making it a normal part of our conversation, that we start talking to our girlfriends about investing advice and getting it from each other and sharing it with each other. So I think when you start having that as part of your normal dialogue, when finances is part of your normal conversation, then it's not so scary, and you're sharing information. Like how else do you learn about anything, right? You get advice from people that you respect. So also go out and seek coffees, whatever, lunches with other angels. So I think it's really important to just start seeking out people that are already doing it. Going to, again, in Dubai, the UAE in general, there's a lot of different pitch nights. You can just start going and listening to founders pitch, so you get comfortable with that whole process. And there's no obligation to invest, but at least the more you hear, the more you get comfortable with that process, and the more you learn about different industries. And like you said, there's so much information online. You know, people just get excited about investing by watching Shark Tank.
Exactly.
Right? Like, they really do. They're like, I want to be a shark.
Oh, yeah. And they're like, not this one. No.
It could go the other way, where you think you know everything by watching Shark Tank. But there is a lot of learning by just watching how do other investors ask questions? What are they asking questions about? And again, just making it a part of your dialogue where you are not afraid to talk about finances.
Yeah. No, you're so right, because even me right now, we're trying to raise in the UAE, right? And I've been speaking to different VCs and
Yes.
just having like social chats, going for
That's
coffee
awesome.
and trying to understand. And you're so right. Everyone approaches investment very differently.
Yes.
And what they care about is different. Some people
That's
just
so
care
true.
about the founders.
So
They
true.
just want to know, do they get a right gut feeling with you or not? Some other people want a very extensive due diligence.
Sure, sure. No, you're absolutely right. And so one thing, and we'll switch to the entrepreneur
Yeah.
right now, that you can't get discouraged because you're right. Every angel network or fund has a different thesis, and your company model just might not fit in to their thesis. That doesn't mean it's a failure. That doesn't mean you shouldn't continue. So it is very important.
Exactly. And it's a question of finding the right fit.
Yeah.
So just like everything else, I feel like even with investors,
Yeah.
you need to find the right fit. And will they be strategically good for you? Will they be good advisors on the board? Can they help you grow? Or are they just going to throw money at you and disappear?
And and depending on you're absolutely right. That is the way you should be looking at. It's a two-way street, right?
Yes.
So you don't just take the first money that comes, even though it's very tempting. You can actually also say no to someone that wants to invest in you, or an organization that wants to invest in you, just because it doesn't fit your long-term goals as a founder. That's really important.
Yeah, that sounds scary to say.
It
no
is.
to.
It is. It is. But you understand
But you're right.
Yeah, that's really important.
No, for sure. I want to go back to something else that you said about women not openly talking about finances. So this is something I've also experienced. Forget even the investing part, right? But just in general, even talking about your salary or how did you negotiate that raise, things like that, it's considered a bit gauche to like speak about it openly.
Yes.
I made a video talking about how much money I spent in a week in Dubai.
Okay.
Because a lot of questions I get is, how expensive is it to live in Dubai?
Yes.
And then I met this woman very randomly on the street, and she was running after me, and she was like, you don't know, I moved to Dubai because of you, because I didn't know if my salary was good or not. And I looked at how much you spent. I sat down with my calculator and I was like, nope, that's enough. I can live with that salary. And I made the move because of that. So you see how like speaking about money can just help other people, because sometimes we don't know, especially if you come from an underrepresented background, you don't know what's a good salary.
Exactly.
You don't know all of that. But how do we get women to speak more openly about that?
I think it is really a tough, when you talk about salary, it's just such a personal thing. And so especially, and I'm going to kind of answer your question in a roundabout way. So working for a large organization like a bank, and the banks that I work for, they didn't want you sharing your salary with your colleagues, because then you're going to find out that you were desperately underpaid compared to your male counterparts, for instance.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's always the case, but I'm just
But the
saying
gender gap exists, right?
Right. And then you might become a discontented employee if that was the case. So it's not like corporations really encourage you to share. And so I guess then you're like, okay, so that's one, right? Because you spend so much time in your company. But also going back to parents, we didn't talk about like what my dad earned. I never thought to ask him, what do you earn? And Sheen, you'll love this one again, from like an immigrant background. I got my first job out of university, and it was like not a huge salary, but it shocked me when my dad said, do you know that's more than I've ever made in my lifetime?
Oh my God,
in
I had
1
the
year.
same conversation.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that amazing?
I've had the same exact conversation with my dad.
And I was shocked.
Same. I was mind blown. I was like, how did we live on that?
Exactly. Right? That they raised a whole family on less than what you first made out of university as a salary. And it wasn't a great salary, trust me.
No.
And so I guess it's also socialization with your family, because if you don't, if you weren't talking about it at the dinner table, there's families that do talk about it at the dinner table, and it's perfectly fine. So then it's just part of their, it's part of their dialogue, and they're fine conversing about it. So if you don't talk about it, in family, corporations discourage you from talking about it. Society perhaps thinking it's gauche to talk about it. So how do we break that down? I guess just by offering up. Like
Opening the
someone
conversation.
has to say, "Hey, this is how much I make."
Yeah.
You know,
What are your
what do you
thoughts?
think? Yeah. You know, what's the benchmark?
Yeah.
And actually, that is important because usually one time in a person's life they are open to talking about it is if they're switching jobs or they've been promoted and they need to have a benchmark.
Yes.
They need to understand if they're getting paid correctly or if they need to negotiate more. And at that point, then people are kind of scrambling, trying to find like an expert that can tell them what should the going rate be for like ABC job.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. I think offering always opens the conversation. And I've had this because I was speaking to another content creator and she was kind of saying, I don't know, if my branded deals are paying me well, but she was still not comfortable sharing. And then I said, look, I have this many followers. This is how much I'm being paid. And then she was like, what? Oh, I'm definitely undercharging then because, and then she opened up with the numbers. And that's the thing. I feel like showing people that it's okay to talk about these things. I'm not hiding anything. We can help each other here.
Yes.
Because now you know how much you should be charging.
Yes. No, that's fabulous that you
Right.
did that. Okay, that's
Yeah.
a fabulous example.
Yeah.
you're living it already. That's great.
No.
Yeah.
But because I've never really, and I think again, it's because of, I grew up with a lot of boys around me. And they are so open about everything finance-wise, right? Even if they are in their overdraft and you'll know.
Right.
And you're like, okay, maybe there's nothing to hide about money
Right,
then. And then it
right.
becomes normal to talk about it. And I think that's what we need to push more women towards.
Yes.
Let's just talk about money. It's okay.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. I
Yeah.
guess that's true. And I don't know why that would be. Right? And maybe it's just part of their normal
It
conversation.
is, yeah. Yeah. But now when we're talking about women and money, that this whole thing, this is where I discovered you for the first time as well, is when we talked about having quotas when it comes to rectifying the gender gap, if it's okay to, let's say we allocate a certain amount of roles or money to women just because they're women. What are your thoughts on that?
So I would love to be able to sit here and say we're doing such a good job just leaving everything by itself. It's all working out just hunky dory. and it's not. Like it's so discouraging because I guess one of the statistics that's top of mind was June last year. And just even actually, hang on, maybe it was January this year, where the number of the amount of funding in the UAE that went to female-founded startups was like $100,000 US in 1 month. I mean, that's paltry. It's just it is laughable.
That's nothing.
I know, and so and then last year summer, I think the statistics and it's gone backwards. It was slow and low to begin with. It was like always we would quote, VCs give female founders like 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
But then it dipped below 2% last year.
It can go below 2%.
It went below 2% last year. And
So out of all of the money that goes to VCs, below 2% is going to female founders.
Yes. And so when it's like that, and we've spent so many years trying to make change and socialize that it's like important to diversify your portfolios, to invest in diverse founders. When we talk about the fact that factually diverse founders actually give you a higher return than all male teamed founders, it's right there, black and white. And, if you are after the money, if you want to make a return, why would you not, look at the statistics, the facts, the science, and therefore diversify and invest? It's so frustrating. So a long way to say that we do need quotas. And so when I say this, so here's one tangible example. So through the WBAF Angel Investment Fund, what we have a global startup stage every year.
Okay.
And so thousands of companies apply. Then 100 are shortlisted. But we make sure 50 of those are teams that have at least one female founder. Okay, so that's important.
So
you
right
got
from
to
the
start from
start.
there.
Yeah.
Right? You got to start
Yeah.
with the pipeline. Okay. Like we talk about pipeline for boards and pipelines for C-suite executives. So, okay, 50% female founders or diverse teams, which means they have at least one female founder. Then when we look at investing, and we haven't made tons of investments yet, but at the end, let's say 5 years down the road, we are actively making sure that in our portfolio, at least 50% of the companies we invest in also have
Okay.
right,
Right.
that are founded by diverse teams.
Okay.
So is that a quota? I guess it's kind of like a quota. I mean, we're not going to invest in a company that's not investable.
Exactly.
Right? But if you start with a pipeline of already 50% of diverse founders, then of course your likelihood of finding investable companies with
Exactly.
diverse, it's at least equal, right? Because so this is also what some companies were doing when they, so you might have heard of the 30% Club, where they
Yes.
try to get more women on boards. And what search firms were signing up to do was they would be sure that they presented to companies that were looking for board directors. 50% of their CVs were female applicants
Okay.
for board roles, for instance. 50%, or it could be for a CEO or CFO. Search firms, recruitment firms were making sure 50% of the candidates they were putting forward were female, which is awesome.
I think that's a great start.
Yeah. And so I
Right.
guess maybe that was one reason and one example that I wanted to replicate with our fund.
No, for sure, because it's not quite, but still it's kind of putting everyone from the same starting line.
Yes.
Right? Because we're trying to rectify it there rather than saying, I'm choosing you because you're a female rather than this startup because they're male.
Yes,
You're
agreed.
just bringing everyone there to start at the same line and then we decide
Yes,
who's good or bad.
Yes.
And I think this whole idea of gender lens investing as well is a really good start.
Yes.
Right? And I think we need to somehow support the women if the statistics are showing that there is an issue.
So sometimes, not often, but sometimes, because I have been part of angel networks that have a gender lens, and we only invested in female founders, and so sometimes you would get some of the male founders being upset that they couldn't apply, and not really fully understanding why there was a need for gender lens investing. And it wasn't that, it's interesting. There are men that are actually like not in a bad way, but they don't see the world like that.
No.
So they're like, really, that there's a discrimination happening here. It doesn't occur to them that that's what's going on.
Yes.
And so it's also educating and saying, unfortunately, we are seeing like nowhere close to the amount of funding that men are getting, male-founded teams are getting.
Yeah,
in this
because I
space.
remember when you said that statistics in that talk, and I said it to a friend of mine who's a male founder, he could not believe it because
Yes.
they're this like he's like, it's impossible. I know so many female founders were
Exactly.
amazing.
Exactly
And I was
right.
like, exactly.
There are. They're just not getting funded at the same rate.
Exactly.
That,
So there is an
Yeah.
issue, and I think you're right. Educating is the first step.
Yes, and also I don't know if I gave this stat. We're very fortunate here in the GCC that 1 in 3 founders are female, which is a higher percentage than even Silicon
Ooh,
Valley.
That's very high.
So it's
Yeah.
it's fabulous. It's not that we don't have female founders; we have a high percentage compared to a lot of other parts of the world. But again, the money is not going to them.
No.
Yeah.
No. Wow. Well, I feel like I've learned a lot about the investing world now. There's something else I want to talk to you about, which is the book.
Yes.
So Lucy has her own book, which is Changing the Game. And I've watched every talk show you've done about the book. So I'm going to pretend I don't know now when I ask the questions. But please tell us about the inspiration behind the book and what brought you to the book.
Yeah, so it was essentially a few things that was happening all at the same time. I have a son, Max, who was loved gaming.
Okay.
And so I wanted to understand his world.
Right.
At the same time, I was meeting with a friend that was building up a company, an esports company, and we would meet every so often, and he would catch me up on the progress of
Right.
his company and what was going on. And now he's got like so many multiple streams for his company. It's awesome. Paul Roy, he's actually written a chapter in there.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm learning from him. And then, of course, because we have so much access to so many awesome conferences in the UAE, I was also at the same time attending some amazing conferences about esports and gaming. So I was sitting at one of these conferences and there was all these amazing global speakers and I was like, holy cow, this has so much relevance to so many people. It has so much relevance to the future of work. It has so much relevance. It doesn't even matter what hat you wear, what profession you're in. Everyone should be taking a deeper look in this sector. Someone should write a book about this. And then I was like, oh my gosh, maybe that's what I need to do that. I need to be the person to write a book about this. And so the book, as you know, is not, I didn't write the book because I'm not the subject matter expert. But what I was fortunate enough to be able to do was to find 38 subject matter experts all around the world, different nationalities. They represent 5 continents. A third of the writers are female, all different age groups.
Wow.
Showcasing that this sector is highly inclusive and that it doesn't matter who you are, you can find a place in gaming and esports.
Yeah.
Not as a gamer necessarily, because that's like any Olympian, only 1% get up there.
Exactly.
But there's so much that is happening in this space, and we should be really aware as to why it's going to impact us in the future. It's already impacting us now, and what we should be able to take away, looking at the content. So the chapters themselves are educational, but then you look at the bios of each of the authors, and that's also a big aha moment, because you're going to be like, for instance, there's a PhD in geography and she got tapped by Microsoft to head up one of their, gaming units. And you're like, how did this lady get tapped to PhD in geography? I mean, there's just so many different backgrounds that have found themselves in this space.
No, you're right. Even to start with, when it comes to gaming in general,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the one place where women feel included. No
Yes.
one cares if you're a girl or a boy
Yes.
behind the screen.
Yes.
Everyone cares about your talent.
Exactly right. So there and unfortunately, every sector there are biases also in gaming esports. There is aggression sometimes towards female players, and female players will talk about that. But there's many awesome organizations that are working on leveling that, right? So I'm an ambassador for an amazing organization based out of the UK called Women in Games.
Okay.
And it's all about leveling the playing field for women that want to enter esports and gaming,
Okay.
whether they're a designer, a creator, or whatever.
Right.
But it is, it's not like, where you're running a triathlon and we have to have the boys place, the boys do it differently and the girls do their own thing. It is a very inclusive community.
Okay, so tell us, how is it going to impact the future of work?
So right now it already is. So for instance, games are used and we don't even realize they're being used. It's pervasive. So I always mention the oldest gamer I know is my mom, because she plays these games on her mobile phone.
Yep.
And my dad does too, and they compete against each other. But it's fabulous to keep dementia and Alzheimer's at bay.
Yes.
They don't know that, but they're doing it because it's fun.
Yeah.
And mobile gaming is huge around the world. But for instance, if you are a surgeon and you're about to perform like an endoscopic or a laparoscopic procedure, it's studies have shown if they game And it doesn't even have to do with operating. If they game whatever they game an hour before they go into surgery, they perform better. So I always laugh and say, then I want my surgeon to be a gamer.
Yeah.
And of course, pilots, right? I mean, they use simulators. That's a game. When we talk about the metaverse, the two of the biggest metaverses in the world are Fortnite and Roblox,
Yes.
which are two games. So as technology progresses, as AR, VR gets better, immersive technologies, and we already saw this during COVID, where people could travel through games to destinations all around the world during COVID. So they could, go to Egypt and learn about Egypt and everything about it in their armchair. So it's just going to be, and then education. There's a whole section in the book about education. Education is already weaving in games. Edutech is a huge area of investing and growth. And more, I think more even needs to be done because you want to make education fun. And again, it's factual that if you weave in some sort of a game component, kids tend to be more engaged than if you're like a sage on the stage.
Oh, yeah.
So they like the interaction of games. So it's already incredibly pervasive in society. We might not always see it, and we might not always understand how it applies to us. But again, whether you're a marketer, especially if you're a brand, doesn't matter what sector, what segment, as a brand, you should really look at where and why you should be marketing in games. And lots of brands already do it, right? Hermes, and people were like, "Oh, you mean like high-end brands too?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Because gamers, there's also misunderstanding. Gamers are many of them are quite affluent. Depending on the market that you're looking at, they usually own a home already.
Yes.
They're older than you think.
Yeah.
And then even if they're not, you're going for that aspiration, right? So you're like, okay, well, maybe when they get older, they might want a Gucci bag, right? And so then there's the aspiration aspect from a brand point of view.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
This is so interesting, because a lot of things are coming together in my head as you're saying this, because I was talking to an investor actually, and they were telling us that one way of marketing our product would be to put an ad on a game and get people to sign up automatically. And then I remember thinking, yeah, but is that my target audience? And then I remembered that a lot of my professional friends, when they go home at night, I know someone who's an investment banker. The only thing he does at night is play games.
Yes.
He will play for 3 hours because that's him relaxing.
That's exactly right.
He would rather not sleep and play for 3 hours.
Right.
And you don't realize that how diverse it is for people who play games, right?
It is.
And then I was like, okay, mind blown. And now you're saying it. I was like,
no.
yeah, I should look into that.
So exactly. Is that especially what you told me about your company? Absolutely, the right model would be one avenue, right? Okay, of bringing on additional users. And so I liked what you said because people don't realize that it's like people like to binge watch Netflix, but a lot of people play games to de-stress.
Yes.
And also that's one, my son used to say, okay, so he's just finished, as an example, he's just finished his AP exams. He's the senior. He's literally got a week and a half of school left.
Oh my goodness.
But when he finished his last AP on Monday, he's like, can I get my gaming computer? And he has not had his gaming computer by his own decision and his own, he was like, okay, no gaming computer until I finish everything since January. So it was like a reward for him, right?
I'm sure he's looking forward to that.
Yeah, and it is a way to connect with many people all around the world. I also talk about, all the skills that you learn by gaming that you don't even know that you're learning. You're playing with people from all over the world. Lots of people will learn second languages that way.
Yeah.
Because they're hearing the call outs and It's really fascinating.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've tried one time playing a game, and I was not expecting to like it, and I played for like 6 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And the more you play, the better you get at it, right? So then you're hooked.
That's right. No, that's fabulous. What game? Do you remember what game
Oh,
it was? But anyways, I mean,
gosh, yeah.
but on the whole thing of games,
Yeah.
there are so many different games, and people don't realize that there is a whole category of ambient games where all you're doing is just walking across a river and listening to the sounds, or it's almost like or forest bathing,
Yeah.
like in a game, and it's so immersive because it's
It
so
is.
real now. Or again, because I talked earlier about impact investing, there's a whole category and organizations called Games for Good, where there's a social good that occurs when you're in that game. So one of the ladies that wrote is Canadian. She's a film director, very accomplished, but she created a game because when she was young, her dad would take her out into the forest. She would collect leaves and acorns, and we're getting a generation of kids that have what they call nature deficit because they're not out there enough.
Yeah.
So her game encourages kids to go out and they level up by finding stuff in real life, and then when
Nice.
they get to a very high level in real life, a real live tree is planted.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
So she's paired up with a tree planting organization in Canada to make that happen.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's an example of a game for good. I call it a game for good.
It is. It is
Yeah.
really cool. And I agree. Like now the immersive technology is crazy because even now we had a office designer and they invited us to look at the model of the office and we thought it would be architect plans or something. No, we had the Oculus.
Oh, cool.
And you look at it and
that's
it's
so cool.
literally the office and you can look around and you see the desk and the walls and the windows. And I was like, this is crazy. This is how advanced we are now.
Yeah, and so that is the way it's moving, right? So you can see that could be applied, in anything going forward in our future, right? And a lot
Exactly.
of industries use it already. Did you get dizzy at all?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
So one of the things that people say that they need to get, people won't play long term using the headset until they can get rid of the whole dizziness
Oh,
factor.
I probably wasn't on it long enough.
But once that happens, and it needs to be, more. It can't just be something that's strapped on your face
Yeah.
because it's not comfortable.
No, and you need to be standing around and your space needs to be empty around you. So.
Right. So there needs to be a lot of changes. But again, as you know, tech is changing so quickly
Yeah.
that's gonna happen.
Right. And even the new cities that they're building now, they have a metaverse city
Yes.
as well. So when you buy land, you also get a land in the metaverse.
Yes.
That's crazy to
Yes.
me to think that this is how rapidly we're growing in that direction.
Right. No, and it's allowing accessibility. What I like about it is, I guess, the human aspect of it, where not for instance, there's whole courses being put into metaverses, because there's a whole segment of society that can't afford a university, but if they have these open concept learning models where you can go into a metaverse and go into a university and learn, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, lovely conversation so far. I know we're running out of time, so I have a final thing I want you to share with us. Looking back at your journey so far and all the experience you have and all the women you've worked with, what advice do you have for younger women who are trying to get into either break into the investment stage or as an entrepreneur or just generally in life? What's your approach to tell them that, how to deal with all the roadblocks that come along?
Yeah. Okay. I guess I thought you were going to ask me, what is the one thing they need to do if they want to break into all of that?
You can say that
So I'll say, find yourself someone that can kind of travel that journey with you. So in a corporation, we always talk about finding a sponsor, and it's something I never did, right?
Yeah.
And I really think I could have done better navigating an organization if I had a sponsor. And a sponsor is someone that will talk about you in a room when you're not there.
Right.
Okay. So I love that. Now, similarly, if you're an entrepreneur and you're raising, you know, if you've developed enough of a circle around you where people are like, oh, I met Sheen and she's got this fabulous, you know, and I know Sheen and I've seen her journey. She's got this fabulous company. You should really look into investing. That's gonna help because it's exponential, right? The more people that talk
Yeah.
about you, the more easier it is, right? And people do tend to have a herd mentality in the investing space. So it's sort of like, oh, you invested in Sheen? Oh, okay, maybe I should take a look at her
Right.
company. And so I think having the sponsor, whatever you want to call that individual. I mean, we talk about mentors, and I think that's very important. But more than that, I guess I think of a sponsor as someone that can open doors.
Right.
Right. And so whether it's helping you, you know, connecting you to suppliers or opening up another geography in the world or finding other investors when the time comes, those individuals are very important to kind of chipping away at any roadblocks.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Lucy. This has been so much fun.
Thanks,
I hope you enjoyed
Sheen.
it.
I did. Thank you so much. Thanks.
No, thank you. And leave us any questions you have in the comment section, and we'll see you next time.